welcome to the second part of the R tutorial that we had begun previously, where in the previous tutorial we showed you how to get started with R and how to play around with the basic data objects, namely scalars, vectors, matrices and arrays, and of course, we also went through briefly on how to plot, how to draw graphs in R. So, in this part, which is the second part, we will focus exclusively on the different data objects that normally one encounters in R. So, as I said, the basic data objects are scalars, vectors, matrices and arrays, which we kind of understood how to create them, how to manipulate them and so on. Today, we will look at a slightly advanced set of data objects known as data frames, lists and time series objects. Of course, there are also these so called factors, but we will discuss these factors as a part of the discussion that we will have on data frames. So, the first in order of discussion is the data frames, and again as I did in the last tutorial, I have prepared an R markdown file, and as I explained in the last lecture, this markdown file offers you a great deal of convenience where you can write whatever text you want to write that describes the tutorial, elements of the tutorial, and also include R commands in the form of what are known as chunks, and you can exclusively run those chunks using the R Studio editor. There are other ways of preparing these tutorials, R markdown is just one of them. So, let us go through this tutorial step by step. We will eventually post the PDF file as we have done previously that comes out of this markdown file. Now, when you deal with anything new in R or any software, as I had said previously, it is good to know how to ask for help. And once again here I am showing you how to ask for help on data frame. So, if again we use the question mark syntax. So, simply typing question mark data dot frame or help in brackets data dot frame will bring up the help window. So, let us do that, and in fact we can run this line exclusively, and that should bring up the help on data frame as you can see in the help window. I am not going to go over that because through the help window, because we are going to discuss this command anyway in detail. So, not to worry, nevertheless you should make it a point to go through the help on data frame or anything else that we are going to bring up, because it is going to tell you what is the syntax, options and so on. Okay. So, likewise you can bring up the help on list, which is a different kind of data object, or a factor or time series, and for that matter in any other thing. Now, let us create a data frame, but before we do that, it is important to understand what a data frame object is in R. For all practical purposes, you can think of the data frame as a matrix. It is no different from a matrix. List is different, it is a more advanced object, but data frame is different from matrix in some respects, all right. And what are those aspects in which the data frame is different from a matrix is what we are going to discuss shortly. So, let us create a data frame. As I said, data frame is a matrix, therefore, it is going to have rows and columns, and the typical arrangement is that columns would contain readings of some variables. It could be height of an individual or the weight of an individual or name, whatever you have in mind, and rows would either refer to timestamps or maybe to individuals and or subjects or specimens and so on. The nice thing about a data frame as compared to a matrix is you can store multiple types of objects, in the sense one column can be numeric, the other column can be a character type and so on, and that is what you see in this data frame. So, the first column in this data frame that we are creating here is the heights of some individuals that we have just randomly chosen, and the second column contains the weights, right, and I have given the units here, that is just to make sense of these numbers. And the third column contains the names of these individuals, which of course I have just picked at random. And if there is any coincidence, you can hopefully forgive me if it is going to offend you, but these are just names that I have picked at random. And there is a fourth variable that I have created, which denotes employment status. So, I am going to pack all these 4 different variables into a data frame, which is what makes it very interesting. How do I do that? Well, I have created the individual columns, essentially the data for the individual variables, and I have given the variable names here. You can see HT, WT and so on, and I just have to pass on these variable names to this data.frame. Data.frame is a routine that allows you to create a data frame, and it just takes in these variables. And note that in creating all these variables, I have used the C, which stands for concatenation. So, these are essentially vector variables, and it is important that all these vectors have the same dimensions, because it is a matrix. That is quite important, whereas list allows you to relax all of this. You can actually pack list into a list into a list and so on. I mean, you can do so many things with a list. Whereas data frame being a matrix, you have to make sure that all the variables have the same number of rows, or if you are looking at row wise, they have the same number of columns. That is it. So, this is a simple way of creating a data frame object. You can of course add and delete and insert many other variables at a later stage. There is no binding there. So, you do not have to worry as to whether you should have all the data ahead in order to create this, ahead of time in order to create this data frame. So, I call this data frame object as DFR1, and now I am asking I am assigning names to these columns. This is a second aspect which distinguishes a data frame from a matrix. In a matrix also sometimes it is possible to assign names, but it is going to be quite tough, whereas data frame it is very easy. You just assign names, and by default these names are the names for the columns, right. So, all I am doing is I am assigning now names, height, weight, names and employee status. And the beauty here is that I can access the elements of the data frame just using these names. I do not have to remember the column number, whereas in a matrix I have to remember the column number, and if I give the wrong column number, I may be accessing a completely different variable. And that is what we are going to look at next, how to access the elements of a data frame. So, what I am doing here is I am manipulating data frames in this chunk. So, let us actually run this first chunk, so that we have the creation of the data frame done. So, it has created, but it does not bring up the console. Yeah, here. Okay. So, the console window is here, just to show that these commands have been run in the workspace, and you can see in the environment variable here that the variables have been created, and particularly of interest to us is DFR1. Good. So, now we have this data frame created, and also it is a good idea for the beginners to confirm that indeed you have created a data frame. So, to do that you can ask for the class of the object, and it will report to you as data frame in this example, and you should make it a habit for a while at least. In fact, it is a good habit to stay with you to check what is the type of the data object that you have created. You may think that you have created one type of data object and something else must have occurred, and you will discover that only later, and by Murphy's law you will discover only when you are not supposed to discover it at all. Okay. And when you do not have time to deal with it. All right. So, let us now manipulate the data frame. What I am doing here is I am creating a new, I am just extracting parts of the or the subset of the data frame. So, I am only interested, let us say, in the height and weight of the individual. I am taking that from the data frame and storing it in this HTWT variable. So, if I run this here, right, if I run the selected line, let us see what I get. Do I get a data frame? Well, it says the dimension is this, fine. In fact, you can also check for the dimension of the data frame, because it is a matrix, it will report the number of rows and columns. What we are interested in knowing is whether this HTWT is a data frame, and it is indeed. So, when I extract the subset of a data frame, I also get a data frame in return, which is good, right. And I can access, as you have seen in the earlier case, I have accessed the elements using the column names, where I just specify the column name in quotes, or I can access the elements using the dollar operator. Right. Some of you must be familiar with this dollar operator. This dollar operator is quite frequently used in R to access elements of either a data frame or a list and so on, and therefore, you should be quite comfortable with it and quite familiar with it. So, here I have just extracted the work status or the employment status, and let us see what happens here. In fact, if you ask for the names of the DFR1, just make sure that we have work status, but it says employment status. So, therefore, you may not get that. If you ask for work status, there is no column by name work status, which means this command here needs some editing, and in fact, when you start typing in here, it will bring up the correct column there or the correct field, fine. So, now that is recorded in workstat, and when you run this line here, you have a variable called workstat, and we can ask what is the class of that. What do you expect to have? What do you expect to have? Data frame, sure. What about you, Sudhakar? What do you think? What do you expect to see?
An array actually, yeah, a vector.
A vector?
Vector.
Yeah. So, it is actually, it says it is a factor, very interesting. But it is reporting it as a factor because that particular column is so called factor. If it was numeric, for example, if you were to ask DFR1 $height, right, it would say numeric, which means it is saying it is a vector. So, with the dollar operator, you would be extracting that particular type of the column. So, let us get back to this factor business, right. So, suddenly now we are presented with this factor object, which we have not encountered before. What is this factor object? It is a very beautiful concept. Basically, these factors are extensively used. This concept of a factor is extensively used in design of experiments and so on, in statistical analysis, where there are certain variables which are held at certain levels only. They do not occupy a continuum of numbers or possibilities. Factors are typically categorical variables which have certain levels. For example, they can be Boolean variables, yes, no, right, which is what this work status is, or you could have numerical categories as well, 0, 1, 2, or high, low, medium, and so on. They are unlike your real number axis. In this case, it recognizes, we have never declared the work status as a factor, but R recognizes it to be a factor because we have used the standard yes, no, and it sees in the column that the column has only yes and no possibilities, and it says, yeah, fine, I can recognize this to be a factor. And the nice thing about this factor is you can base your analysis based on the level that the factor assumes. For example, I can say I want to analyze the height or weight of, let us say, weight of those individuals who do not have a job in hand. Maybe for whatever reason, maybe they are not eating well, right. So, I can actually position my analysis on a certain level that the factor assumes, but we will not get into that, but those are the primary uses of this factor objects. Now, the other thing that you could ask are what are the levels that this factor, remember factor assumes certain levels, factor variable, and we can ask here what are the levels, and it says there are 2 levels. no and yes. These are the two levels. If there were 3 like low, high and medium, it would have shown those. Good. Right. So, at least some brief introduction to this concept of factor. And you can also get access the elements of the data frame using this syntax, where now we have used the square bracket syntax, and we can run the next line as well. So, it has given me the index, the names of that particular variable. So, now here remember we have used a square bracket. So, there are different ways in which you can access the elements of a data frame, and the choice is yours. You can also ask for the attributes of the data frame, and that is a good thing to do when you are presented with a data frame and you are for the first time you are using data frame supplied by someone else, or that it has been loaded from some other source. Then it's a good idea, it's a good practice to look at the attributes. So, it says here that these are the names of the columns, which of course usually have a meaning if the data frame has been created properly. And then it says that there are no row names. You can also assign row names to data frames. We will talk about that soon. And then it says what class it is. So, attributes is a very generic routine in R, which gives you all the elements of that particular object. All right. So, one of the things that you will see in this R Markdown file, in fact, if you have the latest version of R Studio with you, earlier we ran this command print in names, and you can see that the output is displayed here rather than in the console. Earlier we did not see that in the console, and this is pretty good because many a times you want to see what the output is without switching back between the console and the editor. And you can always close this here. There is a small crosshair mark here. If you close this, then the display is gone. All right. Okay. So, let us run whatever we have done here, and so we have everything run here in the display, and it shows here again. It says that these are the things that you will get to see when you run in the console, but we will not worry about that. All right. Okay. So, let us move on. Now, as I said, one of the advantages of working with a data frame is that you can position your analysis based on factors, and a data frame contains columns as factors. It could be gender, it could be employment status and so on, but many a times you may want to verify if indeed that column is being treated as a factor. Certain columns are immediately recognized as to be factors, certain columns not, and I will show you an example shortly. So, you have already seen employment status has been treated as a factor. So, for example, here I can ask is if employment status is indeed a factor, and it says true because R has recognized it, and I have already shown you what are the levels. Now, suppose I want to insert a new column containing the gender information, and I have just assigned the genders based on the names that I have chosen. In India it is pretty easy to most of the times today it is becoming increasingly difficult, but generally it is easier to figure out the gender based on the names. So, I have chosen the names and I have chosen the genders, and now I am going to insert this gender information into this data frame, and that is what I am doing here. So, here is this gender. I have run that and then assigning that into the data frame and printing just to see that yes, this has been inserted. There you go, the gender information has been inserted. I can also delete, suppose this is quite confidential, we can delete a particular column or many columns by assigning a value of null. So, that is what we are doing here. We are saying accidentally included the gender information, I am going to remove this and doing this would have taken out the gender information from the data frame. But then I suddenly realized no, it is all okay, I want to put back the gender information. I am just doing this for a reason, just to show you an alternate way of inserting or assigning a variable into a data frame. And in the earlier syntax we use a dollar operator, here we are using the square bracket syntax, where I am using a double square bracket. If you notice that earlier, to access the elements we used a single square bracket, but then we mentioned the column number. But now if I want to create a column with a name, so I want to create a named column, then I use this syntax where I have a double square bracket, and within the double square bracket I have the name of the column in quotes, and that is what we are going to do. So, we have done, and now we can ask if the gender is a factor. So, it says false, because it does not really recognize F and M to be natural factors. F and T it could have, because it says false and true are factors. So, how do I convert this to a factor, because I know that this can be considered as a factor. So, all I do is I coerce, I force this particular column as a factor using the as dot factor. You know that in R, by now you know you can use as dot vector, as dot matrix and so on. You can coerce one object type to another object type if it is coercible, and this is. So, the moment you do this, here the same column now becomes a factor, right, and of course, I am showing you two other ways of creating this gender, but I leave that to you to execute. Now, let us ask here if indeed after coercing at least it should be true. So, it is, and we can now ask for the levels, and how many levels should we expect to see? 2, right. So, here we have levels of DFR1 dollar gender. So, it says F and M. All right, and many a times it is useful to get some summary statistics on the data frame, and this is interesting. So, if you look at the summary statistics, generally you know, whether you know or not, summary statistics gets you the median, minimum, maximum and some basic statistics, right, mean and so on, and that is what it does, but not for all columns. So, you can see that height and weight are numeric variables, therefore, it gives you that. For names, it just simply reports how many times a name has appeared, and for employment status, because it is a factor with 2 levels, it is showing how many times each level the factor has been maintained at that level, and how many males and females you have in your list. So, it is very nice. So, summary statistics gives you a very good overview. Now, what I am going to show you, so this is a data frame that we created and we played around with. We will close the discussion on data frames by working with a popular data frame object from the data set empty cars, okay. And you should be able to bring up the help on empty cars by simply typing question mark empty cars to know what is this data set all about. It is basically the information from motor trend car road tests. It has different attributes that are being recorded during this test, you know, mileage, and it also looks at the number of cylinders in this in each of these cars, how many axles and so on. So, all that information is contained in this data frame. So, first let us load this object here, and simply you do that by simply typing data routine or data functionality and pass the name of that object. So, here we have empty cars, data of empty cars loads empty cars, and you can see in the environment that empty cars has been loaded, and straight away we want to ask what are the attributes, and it throws up all this information. It says first of all there are this many columns, right. You can see that there are 11 columns altogether, and some of these are quite informative, the names MPG, miles per gallon, cylinder, how much displacement you get, how much horsepower you get and so on. So, quite a few technical aspects. CARB stands for number of carburetors and so on, how many gears. And the row names, earlier I said that one of the advantages of working with data frames is that you can have row names as well. We did not do that when we were creating, when we were working with the previous example, but now this comes with row names, so that it tells you each row corresponds to this particular car, right. And some of these names are names that we have always looked at as names, but we never owned them, right. Most of these cars are like that you see here. So, at least it is good to work with them in R, if not owning them. And as you can see, in total you have this many cars. In fact, if you are weak at counting, then you simply ask for the dimensions, and it says there are in total 32 cars and 11 attributes. Cool. So, now that is what I have done. Now, what we can do is we can look at the entire data, but sometimes data frames can be pretty long. So, we just want to know what the head or tail of it looks like. So, we can ask for head of empty cars, and it brings you the first few typically, and you can control that. You can say I only want to display the first 2 lines or 3 lines and so on. So, the default is 6 sorry and that is it. So, it gives you some idea of what the attributes are for each cars. You can also look at the tail routine, tail command. All right, and as usual you can access for example using the row name column name syntax. Unlike in a matrix, in a matrix you have to specify the row number and column number. Here I can access the elements of data frame by specifying the row name. Here in this example the row name is a car, and I am asking for Datsun 710. How many carburetors are there in this car, right. So, if you run this, it gives you that information, it says 1, and as usual you can ask for summary. So, let us run that, and this is a summary, and you can see all of these are actually numeric variables. Of course, you can declare some of these as factors. For example, you can say gear is a factor or number of carburetors is a factor and so on. It has not been done that way, otherwise it would have reflected in the summary, output of the summary. Now, what one could do is one could also play around with the names. So, if you think that carbs may refer to carbohydrates rather than carburetors, then you can change it, or you do not like the lowercase c and you want the uppercase, yeah, you can go ahead and do it. So, here I am showing you a way of changing the names, column names. So, by default names of any data frame will get you the column names, you have to remember that. So, I am getting the names of empty cars, which will be a vector, or in fact a vector of strings, and then within that I am asking R to check the matching name of CARB and change that to CARBS. So, I am doing all of it packed in one command, and I think it is fairly self-explanatory what I am doing there. The second, the next, in the next line I am changing the row names, and as I said names will access the column names, but if you want to change the row names, then you have to use this row dot names routine or command in R, and the rest of the syntax is Cadillac Fleetwood seems a long name to remember, and I want to shorten it. So, I have here Cadil FL. Or you can search and replace. This is a slightly advanced way of working with it. So, I have here using a command called gsub, and this gsub actually uses some kind of a Perl syntax, but I am not going to go over that. You can look up, but what it does here is gsub, it searches for in this data frame, it searches, it looks at the row names, and within this row names it says wherever I encounter Merc, replace that with Mercedes. So, substitute, generic substitution, gsub stands for, and that is it. So, in one shot you would have renamed the routine, the row names of all those rows where you wanted a full form of Merc as Mercedes, right. So, let us run this. here. Okay. So, I am just showing you the output of the final command. Earlier when you looked up the row names, you had MERC. So, if you recall, not here, but when we load it, yeah. So, here you have MERC when it was loaded, and now after all the processing that we have done, all the Mercs have been replaced with Mercedes, just to show you that it worked. Nice. So, you could also use this routine called rename in the PLYR package. I am not showing that to you, but you can check it out. And let us look at the plot utility. How does a plot work with data frames, and then we will move on to lists. As I said, again, you have to just repeatedly tell yourself data frame at the core is a matrix with some embellishments, and those embellishments are column names, row names, and so on. So, you can simply pass the data frame to plot routine, and I am just going to show you the output here. This is how the plot looks like, right, and you can see obviously what else do you expect to see. There are 32 rows and 11 columns. The plot is going to look quite congested, right, but I am just showing that when you plot, when you pass a data frame to plot, it will actually generate subplots automatically, right, and that is what it is doing. And it is also giving you these numerics here, but it is quite congested. So, let us actually go back and ask for a subplot of a subset of the data frame, and that is what we are doing here to improve our readability. And subset is a routine that is built into R, and all you are doing is here plotting all those data that correspond to cars which have more than one carburetor, and also you do not want to plot all 11 attributes that we had. We only want to plot the miles per gallon, displacement, and horsepower. And once you do that, you get a neater plot because you are looking at a subset obviously. I can show you its execution R, but since I have already done that, in order to save time, I am just showing you here. And this is nice here. So, it shows that what it is showing is a plot of the miles per gallon, displacement, and horsepower for all those cars that have more than one carburetor. And by default it is a scatter plot, but you can change the nature of the plot there. You can have a lines plot, you can have a bar plot, and so on, that you can pass on to the plot routine, all right. And there is a specialized command called pairs, which is meant to work with data frames, and what it does is here in this pairs command, again I am plotting the MPG and the displacement and horsepower, but for all the cars now. Earlier we had restricted ourselves to a particular subset of cars, and specifically I wanted to show you this because you can straight away use this pairs routine and specify the attributes, and also specify an additional thing called through an option called panel. Each of the subplots is called a panel, and the panel option is essentially telling the pairs routine what to do on each panel. So, when I say panel dot smooth, that is when I set the option for panel to panel dot smooth, what it does is it does a fitting, it does a line fitting using an algorithm called LOES, locally weighted exponential smoother. That is quite a mouthful, but what it does is it fits local, it looks at the data and fits a straight line locally, and that is very nice because straight away you can get an idea of the nature of the relationship between, for example, MPG and displacement, or the different attributes that you have plotted. So, we can see here, for example, that the horsepower and displacement share somewhat a linear relationship, right, and the whereas the miles per gallon and the horsepower have some kind of a decaying kind of relationship and so on. But remember, this is not about time, the x axis is not time, you have to understand these are different cars. So, sorry, the x axis here is horsepower in each panel, I apologize, and the y axis is miles per gallon. You can do this manually also, you can generate these plots by hand, but it will take lot of time, and that is where the pairs command comes very handy. So, it is actually doing subplotting for you if you are familiar with MATLAB. Cool. So, that is really nice, you can exploit this pairs plot. You can also use this command called coplot, and of course, you may not see many people using this coplot, but it is a fantastic routine that is built into R, and when I show you the output you will understand why I said fantastic. So, let me actually explain what I am doing here. I am saying coplot miles per gallon against the number of cylinders in terms of by treating gears as factors. You have seen already the gear attribute is not a factor, but I am saying now treat gears as factors and now categorize the data, but which data? The miles per gallon and the number of cylinders, group them according to the number of gears, and how many, what kind of a plot you want and so on is the rest of the option. So, when I do this, when I run this, I get this plot here. So, do not you like this? It is so beautiful. What you have here is, because I have asked it to treat gears as factors, it said, well, look, there are 3 different kinds of gears there, and so it is looking at number of gears 3, 4 and 5, and it says, and then it segregates the data, or it regroups the data based on the level that these gears have assumed, and plots the MPG versus number of cylinders. You could plot something else also, you could use something else as a factor. You could have used number of cylinders, for example, as a factor, or number of axles or number of carburetors and so on. But the nice thing about this plot is it not only shows you the plot between the respective attributes that you have asked, but also shows you straight away for what is the corresponding level for that factor, and which is very nice. Okay. So, that is why I like this plot very well, because it does 2 things in one shot. And you can also do a more complicated one, that is, in the earlier one I said treat the gears as factor. In the second usage I am saying treat the cylinder times gear as a factor. I mean, it is just I made it up, but what I am trying to show you here is you can construct factors out of existing variables and then plot accordingly. So much that you can do with a data frame, and when you do that, the plot looks like this. So, why does it look like this? Because when I have asked it to treat cylinder times gear as a factor, there are 7 levels, and then it regroups the data based on the 7 levels of cylinder times gear and plots the miles per gallon versus horsepower. Okay. So, you can play around, you can think of many things as factors, which is very nice, because many a times I can say draw the height and weight, for example, height versus weight for all men who do not have a job, right. I want simultaneously, and I can use this syntax, all women who have a job, or does not matter, I mean, or it could be something else, but that is the beauty of using this coplot, right. And we close this discussion on data frames by just showing you an example of how you merge 2 data frames. Many a times you may have to do that, and what I am doing here is, again, this is just a synthetic data set I am creating. So, being an academician, the data set that always comes to mind is marks, roll numbers, these are the things that are floating in our minds all the time. So, the first data frame that I create consists of names and roll numbers, and there are 4 students. Generally my classes do not have this many, 4 is just too small, but let us say I have 4 students, and I am using this read dot table. We will come across this routine a bit shortly, but this read dot table is a very powerful way of reading the text into a data frame, and I have set the header option to be true, which means the first row of the text that I am typing should be read as a header, and that is roll number and name, the column names. The rest of it is a part of the data. So, that is it. So, this is students is now a data frame. So, let us run that. I have run the entire chunk, but I could have run this alone. So, let me show you what the student's data frame looks like. So, this is the data frame named students, and suppose I have marks, let us say I am the class teacher and I have marks from 2 different instructors for each student. Then I am just creating this data frame. You can go through this specific commands that I have used for creating some columns and so on, just so that to give you a flavor of some of the advanced things that you can do in R. What you should focus for now is on this new frame, data frame called marks data, right. And how does marks data look like? Because I have 2 instructors per student and I have 4 students, in total I have 8 rows in marks data, and the first column contains the instructor's label C1, and the second column contains the roll number of the student, and the third column contains marks. A lot of times my students wish that these were the marks that they get, right, they are above 50, which is very good. All right. So, now we want to merge these 2 together. I can do it manually, which is not so nice, but we will use the merge routine, and the data frame has a nice name, stud data, actually student data, but so it is simply merged. It has looked up this data frame, students data frame and marks data frame. Of course, certain things have to be the same, the roll numbers have to be the same. The that's the most important thing, because that is the one that is common to both data frames. The roll numbers are the ones that are common. So, now you have a data frame with 4 attributes: the roll number, the name of the student, and the instructor, and the marks, right. Sorry. And so, that is it. So, you have merged 2 data frames, and this could be very handy for you in many applications. You could also merge sorry, with different column names. So, for example, here I can have I am just creating again a marks data frame, all right, and I am creating the students data frame. Sorry, I just created the marks data frame in a different way, and I am saying merge the data frame by roll number. I can just say this is a different way of using the merge routine. Earlier I made sure that the column names are same and so on, but all I am saying here is making sure is that the common one has the same name, that you have to make sure. So, it merges by that column name and then creates the data object. So, you can see here that it has done that. In fact, oops. Okay. So, that is it. So, the result is the same, it is just that you have used a different way of merging, depending on in which form you have the data frames available with you. Nice. So, this completes our discussion on data frames. Of course, if you have had any questions and you have noted them down, please feel free to post them on the forum or write to us.